This raises the question of why we care, why it is so necessary to defeat the regime's nuclear quest. A number of reasons come to mind. A nuclear-armed Iran could embolden Tehran to promote its ambitions in the region and outside of the region even more aggressively than today. This could take the form of support to terrorists or fomenting political unrest to overthrow leaders supportive of the West. At a minimum, Iran would use its possession of nuclear weapons as a powerful tool of intimidation and blackmail. A nuclear-armed Iran would be a direct threat to U.S. forces and allies in the Gulf, as well as in the greater Middle East, and in time to the United States itself. The likelihood of Iran using military force could increase if it believed that its nuclear capability, coupled with its long-range missiles, protected it from retaliation. A nuclear-armed Iran could lead to the end of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, as we have known it for decades, by lighting the fuse for further proliferation in the region and beyond, by countries responding to what they would see as a new threat that must be deterred by their own nuclear program. Finally, and I think an important message to this group, a nuclear-armed Iran would feel even more secure from foreign outside interference and more confident that it could act without concern of repercussions to repress its own people, those who are in fact the greatest threat to the regime's survival. In other words, if Iran achieves nuclear weapons, it is a true game changer. If it seems difficult to deal with Iran today, just imagine if the regime had nuclear weapons. So what do we do to stop it? What are our options? The most common response is to apply economic and financial sanctions against the regime. And together, international and national sanctions have reportedly had a very significant recent effect on Iran, both its government and its economy. In January, General Petraeus, head of the CIA, stated that sanctions were taking a severe toll on the Iranian regime. And more sanctions have been applied since then, especially sanctions against Iran's central bank, as well as its ability to use the international financial system, and as others have mentioned, a future EU embargo on oil. All of this will make it work. The problem is that causing economic pain through sanctions has not stopped the march to a nuclear weapon. So again, what do we do? Let me just put it very bluntly. We are at a critical juncture and are faced with very hard choices and very huge risks. Because we're now at this crossroads, we must consider the use of force. This is not an invasion. This is not large-scale bombing of cities and industrial plants. This is force to destroy the known facilities. No one wants to use force. Every country would prefer a diplomatic, peaceful outcome. But this is a challenge for which there are no easy policy choices. Some, including the repressive regime in Tehran, argue that if force is used, all Iranians will rally around the regime as a nationalistic impulse. Others challenge that conventional wisdom, noting that the limited use of force would not alter the deep animosity of most Iranians toward the regime. Many of you are better able to answer that question than I am. But I will conclude, as I started off, by saying that the only real sustainable solution to the Iranian nuclear threat is the emergence of a free and democratic Iran. This is the greatest threat in the eyes of the regime. They've seen the movie over and over, going back to the lessons of Ceausescu in Romania, much more recently Gaddafi in Libya, and even today with their closest ally, Bashar Assad in Syria. The greatest fear of dictatorships is that of its own people. They know they lack legitimacy and that they rule only through the use of force and repression. That is why Camp Ashraf is such an important symbol. That is why the regime is so determined to destroy it and its residents. That is why it is so opposed to delisting of the MEK. But that is also why we must, in addition to meeting our legal and our moral commitments, act to preserve and protect that symbol of freedom. Thank you very much.